Millionaire loses $5. 8B company in a cyberattack until the maid's 7-year-old daughter fixes it in a minute, leaving everyone shocked. But the proposal she makes leaves them pale. Before we share this tale, give it a like and comment where you're watching from, and one thing that makes you smile. The screens went black at exactly 11:47 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Every single one of them. 28-year-old Marcus Sterling stood frozen in the center of his glass-walled conference room on the 84th floor of the Sterling Dynamics Tower, watching $5.8 billion vanish before his eyes like smoke in the wind. "Sir, we've lost everything," his chief technology officer stammered, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning running at full blast. "The entire network is down. Banking systems, client accounts, proprietary algorithms, trading platforms, it's all gone, completely encrypted and locked away from us." Marcus felt his world crumble beneath his feet. Sterling Dynamics, the revolutionary fintech empire he'd built from nothing since age 22, was bleeding out in real time. 6 years of 18-hour days, countless sleepless nights, and sacrificing every personal relationship had led to this moment. Watching everything he'd created disappear in a matter of minutes. The ransomware attack had penetrated every firewall, encrypted every database, and locked them completely out of their own company. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper above the chaos erupting around the mahogany conference table. "The hackers are demanding $50 million in untraceable cryptocurrency," his head of security reported, his hands shaking as he read from his laptop screen. "We have exactly 6 hours from the initial breach, or they'll release all our client data to the dark web and permanently delete our backup systems. After that, Sterling Dynamics ceases to exist." The boardroom erupted in absolute panic. 12 investors shouted over each other, their faces red with fury and fear. Corporate lawyers frantically made calls to every contact they had in law enforcement. IT specialists typed furiously at laptops with trembling hands, their desperate attempts to regain access failing one after another, but nothing worked. Nothing even came close to working. Years of innovation, thousands of employees' livelihoods, millions of client accounts containing life savings, all held hostage by faceless criminals operating from God knows where. Marcus sank into his leather chair, running his hands through his dark hair as he stared at the wall of dead monitors that had once displayed the heartbeat of his empire. At 28, he was about to lose everything he'd sacrificed his youth to build. No family to comfort him, no real friends to call, just the company that had consumed his entire adult life since graduating from MIT. He'd pushed everyone away in pursuit of success, and now that success was crumbling to dust. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built a company designed to protect other people's financial futures, and now he couldn't even protect his own. Then, through the chaos and shouting and the sound of keyboards clicking desperately, came the soft, almost musical sound of a vacuum cleaner humming in the hallway outside. Even during the corporate apocalypse, life went on. The cleaning crew continued their work, oblivious to the billion-dollar catastrophe unfolding behind the glass walls, maintaining their simple routines while his complex world fell apart. A small, clear voice suddenly pierced through the commotion like a bell. "Mommy, why is everyone yelling so loud?" Marcus looked up from his despair to see a tiny blonde girl, maybe 7 years old, peeking around the doorframe with curious blue eyes. Her clothes were clearly second-hand, but clean and carefully mended. Her golden hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, secured with a worn pink elastic band. She clutched a small, obviously well-loved stuffed rabbit against her chest and looked at the frantic executives with the kind of calm curiosity that only children possess. In the midst of all the adult panic and corporate terror, she seemed like a small island of peace. "Sweetie, go back to your mother," one of the lawyers said dismissively, barely glancing up from his phone call. "This is no place for children." But Marcus found himself studying the child's face with growing fascination. There was something remarkably serene about her presence, a stillness that seemed to cut through the panic, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Her eyes held an intelligence that seemed far beyond her years, and her calm demeanor was such a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding them that it felt almost supernatural. Who was this little girl, and why did her unexpected appearance feel like the first sign of hope in his darkest hour? "Emma, come here, baby. I'm so sorry." The voice belonged to a young woman rushing down the polished marble hallway, her cleaning cart rattling behind her as she moved with surprising grace and determination despite the leg braces that supported her from the waist down, allowing her to maintain an upright position while navigating in her wheelchair. Marcus had seen her before during his many late nights at the office, the beautiful cleaning lady who worked the night shift with unwavering dedication. She couldn't be older than 26, with warm, chocolate-brown eyes and auburn hair that always remained perfectly neat, despite the physical demands of her job. He'd never learned her name, but he'd noticed her incredible work ethic, often staying far longer than her scheduled hours to ensure every surface gleamed, working harder than anyone else, despite what was clearly a significant physical challenge that would have defeated most people. There was something about her quiet dignity that had always impressed him during their brief encounters in empty hallways. While other employees complained about overtime or difficult tasks, she approached her work with a grace that spoke of inner strength and determination that Marcus deeply admired, even from a distance. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling," she said breathlessly, maneuvering her wheelchair closer to the glass conference room with practiced efficiency. "Emma wasn't supposed to leave the employee break room. I'm Sarah Chen, night maintenance supervisor for floors 80 through 90. This is completely my fault. I should have been watching her more carefully." "It's perfectly fine," Marcus found himself saying, though absolutely nothing about this catastrophic day could be considered fine. "Sarah, this is your daughter, Emma." The little girl nodded solemnly, her blue eyes taking in every detail of the crisis unfolding around her. "Mummy has to work extra hours tonight because Mrs. Johnson called in sick with the flu, and the weekend supervisor is visiting her family in California. I finished all my homework early, so I came to see why everyone was so upset and shouting." "Emma, sweetheart, we really need to go right now," Sarah said gently, reaching for her daughter's small hand while clearly embarrassed by the intrusion. "These are very important business people trying to solve serious problems, and we're just getting in their way." But the child was staring intently at the wall of darkened computer screens with the kind of focused concentration that Marcus usually only saw in his top engineers when they were working on particularly challenging problems. Her small brow was furrowed in thought, and she seemed to be processing the situation with remarkable analytical precision. "Those computers are sick," Emma announced matter-of-factly, her voice carrying an odd note of professional assessment that seemed completely incongruous, coming from someone so young. One of the IT specialists let out a bitter, frustrated laugh. "Sick is putting it very mildly, kid. They've got a virus that's going to destroy this entire company and put thousands of people out of work. It's the worst cyber attack in corporate history." Emma tilted her head thoughtfully, studying the screens with the same intensity that Marcus had seen chess masters use when contemplating their next move. "I know about computer viruses. Mrs. Patterson at Jefferson Elementary taught us about them in our weekly computer class. She said they're like playground bullies who take your lunch money and break your toys, but there's always a way to outsmart them and make them give everything back if you're clever enough." Marcus felt a strange flutter of hope stirring in his chest, the first positive emotion he'd experienced since watching his empire collapse. "What do you mean exactly, Emma?" "Well," she said, walking closer to the main terminal with surprising confidence, "bullies always think they're the smartest people in the room, but they usually make mistakes because they get overconfident. You just have to find the right approach to make them realize they've been caught." She looked up at Marcus with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Can I please try to help make your computers feel better? I promise I'll be very careful and won't break anything." The room fell completely silent, except for the barely audible hum of the air conditioning system. A 7-year-old girl offering to solve a $5 billion ransomware attack that had stumped his entire team of cybersecurity experts. It should have been absolutely ridiculous, laughable even. But something in Emma's quietly confident voice, something in the way she looked at the screens, like she could see patterns and connections invisible to everyone else, made Marcus hesitate and consider the impossible. "Emma, honey, these are incredibly expensive and complicated machines," Sarah said softly, clearly mortified by her daughter's boldness. "We should let the computer experts handle this serious situation and get out of their way." But Marcus was studying the child's face with growing fascination, seeing something truly extraordinary in her calm certainty and analytical approach. "Let her try." The words left Marcus's mouth before his rational mind could fully process what he was saying, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. "Sir, with all due respect," his chief technology officer interjected, adjusting his glasses nervously, "we're facing an incredibly sophisticated attack orchestrated by international cybercriminals using military-grade encryption protocols. A 7-year-old child, no matter how bright, couldn't possibly understand the complexities of—" "What exactly do we have left to lose at this point?" Marcus interrupted, surprising himself with the firm conviction in his voice. "Your entire team of experts has been working frantically for over 3 hours with absolutely zero progress. We're down to less than 3 hours before they release everything and destroy our backup systems permanently. What's the absolute worst that could happen by letting her look?" Sarah looked absolutely mortified, her face flushing red with embarrassment. "Mr. Sterling, I truly appreciate your kindness and patience, but Emma is just a little girl who shouldn't even be in this corporate environment. I can take her down to the company daycare center immediately and—" "Please, Mommy." Emma's voice was soft but filled with quiet determination that reminded Marcus of himself at that age. "I promise. I'll be extremely careful with everything. I just want to help the nice man save his company and all those people's jobs." Marcus knelt down to Emma's eye level, something he'd never done with any of the countless high-powered executives who'd pitched million-dollar deals to him over the years. There was something about this child that commanded his complete attention and respect. "Emma, what makes you think you can fix something that has stumped our best experts?" "Because I can see the pattern hiding in all the chaos," she said, with the simple confidence that only children possess. "The bad guys think they're incredibly smart, but they made at least one mistake. They always do. They left breadcrumbs behind, just like Hansel and Gretel in the fairy tale. If you know how to look carefully, you can follow those breadcrumbs all the way back to where they came from." The room was absolutely silent now, the weight of impending disaster temporarily forgotten. Even the lawyers had stopped their frantic phone calls to stare at the small blonde girl who discussed billion-dollar cybercrimes with the casual ease of someone explaining a bedtime story. "She's been coding since she was 4 years old," Sarah admitted quietly, her voice carrying a mixture of intense pride and deep embarrassment about their circumstances. "I found some old programming textbooks at a garage sale for 50 cents each, thinking they might help her with math skills, but she just understood them immediately. Self-taught herself Python first, then JavaScript, then started working on more advanced languages like C++ and Java. I can't afford proper computer classes or tutoring, but the public library offers free internet time for 2 hours each day, and she spends every single afternoon there learning." Marcus felt his heart skip several beats. "You're telling me she's actually a programmer?" "I'm saying she's gifted in ways that I can't fully comprehend," Sarah whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "But Mr. Sterling, we're just the night cleaning staff. We don't belong in corporate boardrooms solving million-dollar problems alongside people with advanced degrees." Emma stepped forward with surprising boldness, her small hand touching Marcus's arm gently. "Mr. Sterling, I know we're poor, and Mommy cleans your floors every night. But being smart doesn't care about how much money your family has. Intelligence just cares about solving puzzles, and this is the biggest, most interesting puzzle I've ever seen in my entire life. Marcus looked into those wise blue eyes that seemed to hold depths far beyond her 7 years, and made a decision that would change everything. "Show me what you can do, Emma." Emma approached the main computer terminal with the quiet confidence of someone 3 times her age, her small frame dwarfed by the massive curved monitors and sophisticated control panels that formed the nerve center of Sterling Dynamics. Her tiny fingers hovered over the professional-grade keyboard as she studied the ominous ransom message displayed across multiple screens in bold red letters. "Your data is permanently encrypted. Pay $50,000 in untraceable Bitcoin to recover. You have 247.33 remaining. First, I need to see the attack pathway they used to break in," she said, her voice taking on a focused intensity that immediately silenced every conversation in the room. "The bad guys didn't just magically appear inside your computer system. They had to knock on the digital door first and find a way to trick someone into letting them inside." She pulled up the complex system logs with surprising ease, scrolling through thousands upon thousands of lines of technical code with remarkable speed and comprehension. The executives watched in stunned silence as this 7-year-old child navigated their most sophisticated security protocols and administrative interfaces like she'd personally designed every aspect of them herself. "There," Emma pointed confidently to a seemingly random string of characters buried deep within the morning's network traffic logs. "They came in through your email server at exactly 6:23 a.m. Someone opened an attachment they definitely shouldn't have, probably thinking it was something harmless like a funny picture or an important document." Marcus's head of security leaned forward, squinting at the dense code displayed on the screen. That's absolutely correct. Our initial analysis took 2 hours to identify that same entry point. How did you spot it so quickly?" "Because patterns are like musical melodies," Emma explained patiently, her small hands moving across the keyboard with increasing confidence. "Once you learn to hear the underlying rhythm, you can follow it anywhere it goes, even when it tries to hide." Her fingers flew across the keys with surprising speed. "See, they used what's called a polymorphic virus that automatically changes its digital signature every few minutes to avoid detection, but it still has to communicate regularly with its command and control server to receive new instructions and report its progress." She opened a sophisticated network monitoring tool and began tracing data packets in real time, following digital trails that were completely invisible to everyone else in the room. The executives watched in fascination as streams of code flowed across the monitors, and Emma tracked the communications like a detective following clues. "The virus is actively talking to someone right now," she continued, her concentration absolute. "It's sending detailed status reports every 90 seconds to—" She paused, her young brow furrowing with confusion as she stared at the results. "That's really weird and unexpected." "What's weird?" Marcus asked, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "The command and control server is located in New Jersey, less than 50 miles from here, like really close to Manhattan. Most international hackers use servers in countries that don't cooperate with American law enforcement, places like North Korea or certain parts of Eastern Europe, but these criminals are practically our neighbors." Emma's eyes lit up with sudden understanding and excitement. "They're not sophisticated international criminals at all. They're local amateurs, and they just made the kind of really dumb mistake that could get them caught easily." She opened multiple windows simultaneously and began typing commands that made even the IT specialists exchange bewildered glances and shake their heads in amazement. "If I can successfully trace their communication protocol back to its original source, and then reverse engineer their encryption key based on their geographic location and timing patterns." The room held its collective breath as Emma worked with laser focus, her small fingers moving across the keyboard like a virtuoso pianist performing a complex concerto. Sarah watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face as she witnessed her remarkable daughter accomplishing something that seemed completely impossible. After 90 seconds that felt like hours, Emma smiled with pure satisfaction. Found them. They're using modified AES encryption, but they made the amateur mistake of basing their key generation on local timestamps and geographic coordinates. Really sloppy work. She cracked her tiny knuckles. Now comes the really fun part. Emma's fingers moved across the keyboard like a virtuoso concert pianist, hitting the most complex crescendo of a challenging masterpiece. Lines of intricate code appeared and disappeared with lightning speed. Multiple windows opened and closed in perfect synchronization, and slowly, miraculously, the dead screens around the conference room began flickering back to life one by one, like stars appearing in a darkening sky. "What exactly is she doing?" One of the board members whispered in absolute amazement, afraid to speak louder and break whatever spell was happening before their eyes. "She's writing a counter-virus program in real time," Marcus's chief technology officer said, his voice filled with professional disbelief and growing excitement. "She's actually creating sophisticated code that's systematically unwrapping their encryption layer by layer, essentially teaching their own virus to self-destruct. It's the most elegant solution I've ever witnessed." The IT team gathered closer, watching in fascination as Emma worked with the kind of focused intensity usually seen in seasoned professionals with decades of experience. Her approach was both methodical and intuitive, combining technical precision with creative problem-solving in ways that seemed to defy conventional cybersecurity protocols. Emma paused suddenly in her work, looking up at Marcus with an expression that was simultaneously confident and vulnerable. "Mr. Sterling, I need to ask you something really important before I finish this and complete the repair process." "Anything, Emma. What do you need?" Marcus replied, his heart racing with anticipation and hope. "When I fix this completely and make all your data come back safely, and when the bad guys can't hurt your company anymore, I promise I won't ask for anything expensive or fancy for myself. I don't need toys or games or pretty clothes." She hesitated, suddenly looking every bit the 7-year-old child she actually was, her voice becoming smaller and more uncertain. "But I want to ask for something really important for my mommy." Marcus felt his throat tighten with unexpected emotion. "What do you want for your mother, sweetheart?" Sarah immediately rolled her wheelchair closer, genuine alarm filling her voice. "Emma, baby, Mr. Sterling doesn't owe us anything at all. Just letting you try to help him is already more kindness than we could ever expect." "No, Mommy, please listen," Emma said with surprising firmness, tears beginning to form in her bright blue eyes as she struggled with emotions too big for her small frame. "You work so incredibly hard every single night, cleaning these floors until your back aches, and your legs hurt constantly, and sometimes I hear you crying quietly in the bathroom when you think I'm asleep and can't hear you. You have to clean these huge floors, crawling on your hands and knees, because your legs don't work the way they should. And it's not fair that someone as wonderful as you has to suffer so much." The room became completely silent now, the urgency of the countdown timer temporarily forgotten in the face of such raw, honest emotion. Even the most hardened executives found themselves moved by this child's pure love for her mother. Emma turned back to Marcus, her small chin trembling, but her voice remaining steady with determination. "Mr. Sterling, if I save your company and all those people's jobs, will you please help my mommy walk again? The doctors at the free clinic said there might be a special surgery that could help fix her spine, but it costs more money than we could earn in 10 years of working. She's only 26 years old. She should be able to dance and run and play with me in the park, but instead she works 2 different jobs just so we can afford our tiny 1-bedroom apartment and have enough food to eat." Marcus felt like he'd been struck by lightning, his chest tight with emotion. This extraordinary child, this little girl who was about to save his $5 billion empire, wasn't asking for personal rewards or recognition. She was asking him to give her mother the precious gift of mobility, the chance to live a full life without pain and limitation. "Emma," he said quietly, his voice thick with conviction, "if you can truly fix this crisis, I give you my solemn word that I'll move heaven and earth to help your mother. Whatever the surgery costs, whatever the best doctors charge, whatever it takes." Emma smiled through her tears, wiping her eyes with the back of her small hand, and turned back to the keyboard with renewed determination. "Okay then, let's go catch some bad guys and save your company." She pressed enter with decisive confidence, and the room erupted in brilliant light as every screen blazed back to normal operation. The transformation was absolutely instantaneous and breathtaking in its completeness. Account balances reappeared exactly as they had been, client databases restored themselves perfectly, trading algorithms resumed their normal operations, and the ominous ransom message vanished completely as if it had never existed. The menacing countdown timer froze at exactly 1:23:44, flickered once, then disappeared entirely from every monitor in the building. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emma announced with a satisfied smile that lit up her entire face, "your company has been officially unkidnapped, and all the bad guys' work has been completely undone." Bill. The conference room exploded in unprecedented celebration. 12 executives cheered and applauded thunderously. Corporate lawyers actually smiled for the first time in hours, and IT specialists stared at their screens in absolute wonder as years of irreplaceable data materialized intact and completely undamaged. But Marcus only had eyes for the small blonde girl who had just performed what could only be described as a technological miracle. "Emma," he breathed, still hardly believing what he'd witnessed. "How in the world did you accomplish that?" "I politely told the virus to go home where it belonged," she explained, with the matter-of-fact simplicity that only children possess. "I found exactly where it lived, figured out its real digital identity, and sent it a very firm message saying, 'You don't belong here. Everyone knows who you really are now, and it's time to leave immediately.' Computer bullies are exactly like playground bullies. They only stay brave and mean when they think nobody can identify them or fight back effectively." Sarah wheeled herself closer to her remarkable daughter, her face streaked with tears of overwhelming pride and amazement. "Baby girl, what you just accomplished. I don't even have adequate words to express how incredible you are." But Emma wasn't finished with her work yet. She pulled up one final screen with practiced efficiency and pointed to a specific address displayed in bright green text. "Mr. Sterling, those bad guys are located at this exact address in Newark, New Jersey right now. Their command server is still running and broadcasting, and they're probably sitting there wondering why their expensive virus suddenly stopped working and started destroying itself. If you call the FBI immediately, within the next few minutes, they can arrest the criminals before they realize what happened and try to escape. I've also isolated all the evidence you'll need for prosecution, including their real identities, bank account information, and complete records of their illegal activities." Marcus was already dialing law enforcement on his secure phone, but his amazed gaze never left Emma's calm, confident face. This remarkable child had just saved his company, identified the criminals responsible, provided evidence for their arrest, and accomplished everything in under 20 minutes, a feat that his team of experts had declared impossible. When he finished providing the critical information to federal agents, the room had fallen quiet again, with a sense of awe and anticipation. Everyone was staring at Emma, who suddenly seemed very small and very young, standing beside the massive computer terminal that had become the instrument of her triumph. "Now," she said softly, looking up at Marcus with hope and trust shining brightly in her blue eyes, "about Mommy's surgery to fix her legs." Marcus knelt down and gently took her small hands in his much larger ones. making a silent promise that would change 3 lives forever. "Emma Chen, you have my absolute word of honor. Your mother will receive the finest medical care that money can buy from the best doctors in the world. But first, I need to ask you something very important." "What is it?" she asked with curious innocence. "How would you and your mom feel about moving out of that tiny apartment and into somewhere much more appropriate for the girl who just saved Sterling Dynamics and thousands of jobs?" Emma's eyes widened with wonder and disbelief, and for the first time all day, she looked exactly like the 7-year-old child she was supposed to be. "Really and truly? A bigger, nicer place for me and Mommy to live? Really and truly. And Emma, I promise you're never going to have to worry about being hungry or cold or unsafe ever again." "Ndor," as the little girl threw her arms around his neck in the purest expression of joy and gratitude he'd ever witnessed, Marcus Sterling realized something profound. Losing $5 billion had actually been the best thing that ever happened to him, because it had led him to discover something infinitely more valuable than money. A family he never knew he desperately needed, and the chance to be the father figure these 2 remarkable people deserved. But what Emma whispered in his ear next would change everything once again, in ways none of them could possibly imagine, setting the stage for revelations that would transform their lives forever. What Emma whispered in Marcus's ear made his blood run cold. "Mr. Sterling, there are more bad guys coming. The virus I stopped was just practice. They're planning something much bigger for tomorrow." Marcus pulled back, studying her serious expression. "Emma, how could you possibly know that?" "When I was inside their system, I found hidden files," she explained quietly, glancing around to make sure the celebrating executives couldn't hear. "They were testing your security for someone else, someone who paid them lots of money to find all your weak spots. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. the real attack begins." Sarah's face went pale. "Honey, are you absolutely certain about this?" Emma nodded gravely. "The practice attack today was supposed to fail after they learned everything they needed. But I stopped it too fast, so they don't know I saw their secret plans." Marcus felt his momentary relief evaporate. "What kind of attack, Emma?" "Much worse than today. They want to steal everyone's money, not just lock it up. Millions of people will lose their life savings." Emma's young voice carried a weight that shouldn't belong to any 7-year-old. "And they have someone helping them from inside your company." The room suddenly felt colder. Marcus had built Sterling Dynamics on trust, carefully selecting each employee, treating them like family. The thought that someone he trusted was betraying everything made his stomach churn. "Who?" he whispered. "I don't know yet, but I can find out," Emma said with quiet determination. "I saved all their messages before I destroyed their virus. Give me tonight to study everything, and tomorrow morning I'll know exactly who's helping them." Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. "Emma, I'm going to do something unprecedented. I'm hiring you as our chief security consultant, effective immediately." "Sir," his CTO interrupted, having overheard. "She's 7 years old. She's also the only person who can save us," Marcus replied firmly. "Emma, do you accept the position?" Emma looked at her mother, who was still processing everything. "Mommy, does this mean we can help Mr. Sterling catch all the bad guys?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Baby, this is much more dangerous than a computer puzzle. But people will lose everything if we don't stop them," Emma said simply. "And maybe the bad guys will hurt Mr. Sterling too. He's going to help fix your legs, Mommy. Now we need to help protect his company." Marcus knelt down again. "Emma, I need you to understand something. If you do this, you'll be going up against very dangerous people who won't hesitate to hurt a little girl if they discover what you're doing." Emma squared her small shoulders. "Then we'd better make sure they don't find out until it's too late." The determination in her voice reminded Marcus of himself at that age, willing to take any risk for the people he cared about. He was looking at someone who might be even braver than he'd ever been. "All right then, Chief Security Consultant Chen," Marcus said officially. "Your first assignment is identifying our traitor. Your second is stopping tomorrow's attack. Can you do both?" Emma smiled, but her eyes remained serious. I can do both, but I'll need help. And Mr. Sterling, we need to start planning Mommy's surgery right now. Why the urgency? Because once we stop the real attack tomorrow, everything changes. The bad guys will know someone smart is protecting you, and they might try to hurt the people you care about. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. They might try to hurt Mommy to get to me. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. This brilliant child wasn't just thinking tactically about cybersecurity, she was thinking strategically about protecting her family. At 7 years old, she understood consequences that many adults would miss. Then we move fast, he decided. Sarah, pack whatever you need. You and Emma are staying in my penthouse tonight under full security. Tomorrow morning, we'll have you at the best medical center in New York, and by tomorrow afternoon, we'll have caught our traitor and stopped the attack. Mr. Sterling, we can't possibly, Sarah began. Yes, you can, Marcus interrupted gently. Emma just saved my company. Now I'm going to save your family, all of us together. But none of them realized that the traitor was listening to every word through the conference room's security system. Dr. Catherine Morrison, chief of spinal surgery at Manhattan Presbyterian Hospital, studied Sarah's MRI scans with growing excitement. At 3 a.m. Wednesday morning, she'd been awakened by a call from Marcus Sterling himself, offering to fund whatever treatment Sarah needed, regardless of cost. Mrs. Chen, this is remarkable, Dr. Morrison said, pointing to specific areas on the illuminated images. Your spinal cord injury appears to be incomplete. The damage is significant, but there's still neural pathway connectivity that we can work with. Sarah sat in her wheelchair in the hospital's VIP consultation room, Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms after their exhausting day. Marcus stood nearby, having insisted on personally overseeing every aspect of Sarah's care. What does that mean exactly? Sarah asked, hardly daring to hope. It means there's an experimental procedure, neural pathway reconstruction combined with stem cell therapy, that could potentially restore significant function to your legs. The surgery is complex and expensive, but Mr. Sterling has already authorized whatever resources we need. Marcus stepped forward. Doctor, what are the risks? Standard surgical risks exist, but the procedure itself has shown an 85% success rate in similar cases. Recovery would require 6 months of intensive physical therapy, but Mrs. Chen is young and otherwise healthy. I believe the odds are very much in her favor. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I could actually walk again. More than walk, Dr. Morrison smiled. If the surgery is successful, you could run, dance, play with Emma, live a completely normal life. Emma stirred in her mother's arms, opening sleepy blue eyes. Did the nice doctor say you can be fixed, Mummy? She said there's a very good chance, sweetheart. Emma sat up suddenly, fully alert. Mr. Sterling, what time is it? Marcus checked his watch. 3:30 in the morning. Why? Because I figured out who the traitor is, Emma said with quiet certainty. And we have less than 12 hours before they help the bad guys steal everyone's money. The room fell silent. Dr. Morrison looked confused by the sudden shift in conversation, but Marcus and Sarah understood immediately that Emma's brilliant mind had been working even while she slept. Who is it, Emma? Your chief financial officer, Mr. Richardson, she said without hesitation. He's been feeding information to the criminals for 3 months. He owes gambling debts to very dangerous people, and they promised to forgive everything if he helped them rob your company. Marcus felt betrayed and furious. James Richardson had been his friend since college, one of the first people he'd hired when starting Sterling Dynamics. How do you know this? I spent all night reading through the encrypted messages I copied from their system. Mr. Richardson has been sending them detailed information about your security protocols, client account structures, and transfer procedures. He even gave them administrator passwords. Emma, these are very serious accusations, Marcus said carefully. I know, and I have proof. Emma climbed down from her mother's lap and walked to the computer terminal in the consultation room. May I? Dr. Morrison nodded, fascinated despite her confusion. Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing files she'd downloaded and decrypted during the night. Financial records, email communications, and bank transfers appeared on screen, irrefutable evidence of Richardson's betrayal. He received $2 and $3 million in 3 payments over the past month, Emma explained, highlighting specific transactions. The final attack is scheduled for 3 p.m. today, Mr. Richardson will disable your final security protocols from inside the building, allowing the criminals to transfer $500 million to offshore accounts before anyone realizes what's happening. Marcus stared at the evidence, his anger building. His oldest friend had sold him out for money. There's more, Emma continued softly. Mr. Richardson knows about me now. He accessed the security footage from yesterday's meeting and heard everything we discussed. He's already told the criminals about the little girl who stopped their practice attack. Sarah instinctively pulled Emma closer. They know about you? They know about all of us, Emma said with frightening maturity. Which is why Mommy needs her surgery today, before 3 p.m. Once we stop their attack, we'll all be in danger until the police catch everyone involved. Dr. Morrison finally understood the urgency. I can have an operating room prepared within 2 hours. The surgery will take 4 hours, which puts us right at your deadline. Marcus made his decision. Do it. Sarah, are you willing to take this risk? Sarah looked at her remarkable daughter, then at the man who'd shown them such incredible kindness. If Emma is brave enough to face dangerous criminals to protect others, I can be brave enough to face surgery to protect her. Then let's save your mother and stop some bad guys, Marcus said with grim determination. But Richardson was already making his final preparations, and the criminals were moving their timeline up. At 7 a.m., as Dr. Morrison prepared Sarah for surgery, Emma sat in the hospital's computer center, her small fingers flying across multiple keyboards simultaneously. She'd convinced Marcus to let her work from the hospital while staying close to her mother. But what she'd discovered in the past hour had changed everything. Mr. Sterling, they moved the attack up, Emma said urgently into her secure phone. It's happening at 1 p.m. now, not 3 p.m. Mr. Richardson told them about me, and they're scared I'll stop them again. Marcus was in his office, having called an emergency board meeting under false pretenses to keep Richardson from becoming suspicious. Can you still stop it from there? I'm trying, but it's much more complicated than yesterday. They've had months to prepare, and they're using quantum encryption that's almost impossible to break. Emma's voice carried frustration that seemed far beyond her years. I need to be in your building, at the main server room. And Mr. Sterling, I think they're planning to hurt you too. What do you mean? I found messages about making sure there are no witnesses who can identify them. Once they steal the money, they're going to. Emma's voice broke slightly. They're going to make sure you can't tell the police what happened. Marcus felt ice in his veins. These weren't just cybercriminals. They were planning murder. Emma, I want you to stay exactly where you are. Don't leave that hospital for any reason. But if I don't stop them, if something happens to you, it won't matter whether the company survives, Marcus said firmly. You and your mother are more important than any amount of money. Dr. Morrison approached Emma's workstation. Emma, we're ready for your mother's surgery. She's asking for you. Emma looked torn between her computer screens and her mother's needs. Mr. Sterling, Mommy's surgery is starting. I have to go be with her. Go, I'll handle Richardson and the attack somehow. No, you can't. You don't understand how their system works. Emma's voice became determined. I'm going to do something really dangerous, but it's the only way to save everyone. Emma, whatever you're thinking, I'm going to let them think they're winning. I'll pretend their attack is working, let them steal a little money, and then trace them back to their real location while they're distracted by success. But you have to arrest Mr. Richardson at exactly the right moment or he'll warn them. Marcus realized he was witnessing strategic thinking that rivaled his best corporate negotiators. When? I'll send you a text that says birthday cake. When you get it, you'll have exactly 60 seconds to arrest Mr. Richardson before he realizes what's happening. Emma, this is incredibly dangerous. If you make one mistake, if I don't try, Lots of innocent people lose their money, and bad guys hurt you, Emma said simply. Mommy taught me that when you can help people, you have to try, even if it's scary. Dr. Morrison gently touched Emma's shoulder. Sweetheart, your mother is waiting. Emma looked at her screens one final time, downloading critical files to a secure drive she tucked into her pocket. Mr. Sterling, take care of yourself. I'm going to take care of Mommy, then save your company. As she walked toward the operating room to be with Sarah during surgery, Emma was already calculating the precise timing needed to outwit criminals who'd underestimated a 7-year-old girl for the last time. In his office, Marcus stared at James Richardson across the conference table, knowing that his oldest friend was planning to betray him in less than 6 hours. The hardest part wasn't preparing to arrest him. It was pretending everything was normal until Emma gave the signal. Richardson smiled and made small talk about quarterly projections, having no idea that a little girl in a hospital computer center was about to end his criminal career forever. But the criminals had one more surprise that none of them saw coming. They'd hired professional assassins as backup, and those assassins were already in position around both the hospital and Sterling Dynamics Tower. Emma's brilliant plan was about to become a deadly game with stakes higher than anyone imagined. At 11:30 a.m., Sarah's surgery was proceeding flawlessly when Emma's phone buzzed with an emergency alert. She was sitting in the family waiting area, monitoring both her mother's procedure and the criminal network through her laptop, when everything changed. Dr. Morrison, I need to see you immediately, Emma said, approaching the surgical observation window with urgent concern. The surgeon looked up from Sarah's open spinal column, where she was carefully reconstructing neural pathways. Emma, I can't stop now. The procedure is at a critical phase. Though someone's coming to hurt us, Emma said quietly but firmly. Bad men with guns are in the hospital right now, looking for me and Mommy. Dr. Morrison's hands never paused in their delicate work, but her eyes sharpened with alarm. How do you know this? Because I've been tracking all the criminals' communications, and they just activated what they call Plan C, eliminate all witnesses. Emma's voice remained remarkably calm for a 7-year-old facing mortal danger. They have 2 men in the hospital, and 3 men going to Mr. Sterling's building. Emma, I need you to call security immediately, Dr. Morrison said, still focused on Sarah's spine. I already did. Hospital security is looking for them, but these are professional killers, not regular bad guys. Emma pulled out her secure phone. Mr. Sterling, are you there? Marcus answered instantly. Emma, what's wrong? They sent people to kill us. Change of plans. I'm starting the counterattack now, 30 minutes early. You need to arrest Mr. Richardson immediately. Emma, get somewhere safe first. I can't. If I stop working now, they'll realize what I'm doing and hurt you instead. Emma was already typing commands on her laptop while talking. Mommy's in surgery and can't be moved. I have to protect her by stopping them right now. Dr. Morrison listened to this extraordinary conversation while performing microsurgery on Sarah's spinal cord. Emma, I need you to know something. Your mother's surgery is going perfectly. The neural reconstruction is working better than I hoped. Really. She'll be able to walk again. More than walk. If recovery goes well, she'll have full function within 6 months. Emma smiled through her tears, then refocused on her screen with fierce determination. Then I definitely can't let anyone hurt her now. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she launched a sophisticated counterattack that would make the criminals' own system turn against them. But instead of just stopping their theft, she was doing something far more audacious. She was tracking every criminal in their network, identifying their real names, locating their hideouts, and preparing evidence packages for law enforcement agencies across 3 states. Mr. Sterling, I'm sending you everything now. In 5 minutes, you'll have enough evidence to arrest everyone involved, not just Mr. Richardson. Emma, professional killers are in your building. Please find somewhere safe to hide. I can't hide and protect Mommy at the same time, Emma said with absolute certainty. But Mr. Sterling, I've been thinking about something important while Mommy's been in surgery. What's that? When this is all over, and Mommy can walk again, and all the bad guys are in jail, I want to ask you something really big. You can ask me anything, sweetheart. Emma's voice became soft and vulnerable, revealing the little girl beneath the genius. Would you maybe want to be my daddy? I know you're not married and we're not fancy people, but you've been nicer to me and Mommy than anyone ever has. And I think you're lonely too. Marcus felt his heart stop. In the middle of a crisis involving cybercriminals and assassins, this remarkable child was offering him the family he'd never realized he desperately wanted. Emma, I would be honored to be your father, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Good, Emma said, her fingers still flying across the keyboard. Then you better stay alive so we can be a real family. Dr. Morrison looked up from Sarah's surgery. Emma, your mother is going to be so happy when she wakes up. About everything. Emma smiled. Then her expression grew serious as footsteps approached the waiting area. The bad guys are here. Time to finish this. Two men in dark suits entered the hospital's surgical floor, their hands positioned suspiciously near concealed weapons. Emma saw them approaching through the waiting area's glass doors and made a split-second decision that would determine everyone's fate. Instead of hiding, she walked directly toward them, with the confident stride of someone who belonged there. Excuse me, are you looking for the little computer girl? She asked innocently, clutching her laptop like any other child might hold a favorite toy. The larger man studied her with cold eyes. You're Emma Chen. Maybe. Are you here to hurt me and my mommy? We're here to solve a problem, the second man said, his voice carrying a menacing edge that would have terrified most children. But Emma wasn't most children. Well, I solved your problem already. The computer attack failed. All your friends got arrested and Mr. Richardson is probably in handcuffs right now. The men exchanged glances, clearly not expecting such directness from a 7-year-old. You're lying, the first man said. Emma shrugged and opened her laptop, showing them a live news feed on her screen. Channel 7 News is reporting major arrests at Sterling Dynamics. FBI agents arrested Mr. Richardson and 5 other people 15 minutes ago. Your bosses in New Jersey got arrested too. The news anchor's voice filled the quiet hallway. In a developing story, federal agents have made multiple arrests in connection with a sophisticated cybercrime operation targeting Sterling Dynamics. The FBI credits an anonymous tip with breaking the case wide open. The larger man's face darkened with rage. If the operation failed, then you're the only loose end left. Actually, I'm not a loose end at all, Emma said calmly, then smiled in a way that should have been innocent but somehow wasn't. I'm the trap. Before either man could react, hospital security officers emerged from stairwells and elevator banks, surrounding them with weapons drawn. Behind them came FBI agents who'd been coordinating with Emma for the past hour. Emma Chen, you are either the bravest little girl I've ever met or the craziest, Agent Sarah Martinez said with admiration as the suspects were handcuffed. Maybe both, Emma replied. But the important thing is that Mommy's safe and her surgery is working perfectly. Doctor. Morrison emerged from the operating room, pulling off her surgical mask with a triumphant smile. Emma, your mother's surgery was a complete success. The neural reconstruction exceeded every expectation I had. She'll really be able to walk again? She'll be able to do everything she ever dreamed of doing. The recovery will take time, but within 6 months, your mother will have full mobility. Emma finally allowed herself to cry, not from fear or stress, but from pure relief and happiness. Can I see her? She's sleeping now, but yes. And Emma, she was asking for you right before the anesthesia took effect. She wanted me to tell you how proud she is. As they walked toward the recovery room, Agent Martinez fell into step beside them. Emma, I have to ask, how did you coordinate law enforcement response while simultaneously fighting off professional criminals? Easy. I sent everything to the FBI an hour ago, then I just had to keep the bad guys busy until you could get here. Emma looked up at the agent with those wise blue eyes. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to let the bad guys think they're winning until it's too late for them to escape. Dr. Morrison shook her head in amazement. Emma, you've saved your mother's future, protected countless innocent people, and outsmarted international criminals. What are you going to do next? Emma's face lit up with the first purely childlike expression she'd shown all day. I'm going to sit with Mommy until she wakes up, and then Mr. Sterling is going to adopt me, and we're all going to be a real family. He's adopting you. He said yes when I asked him earlier. He's been lonely and we need a daddy, so it's perfect. Die. As they entered Sarah's recovery room, where she lay peacefully sleeping while her body began the miraculous process of neural regeneration, Emma finally allowed herself to believe that everything was going to be okay. But the greatest surprise was still waiting for them when Marcus arrived with news that would change their lives forever. 6 hours later, Sarah opened her eyes to find Emma curled up in the chair beside her hospital bed, still clutching her laptop, and Marcus Sterling sitting nearby with tears streaming down his face. "Hey, Mommy," Emma said softly, immediately alert. "How do you feel?" Sarah tried to speak, her voice hoarse from the anesthesia. "Different. I feel different." Dr. Morrison entered with Sarah's chart, her professional demeanor barely containing her excitement. "Mrs. Chen, I have remarkable news. The neural reconstruction was even more successful than we hoped. Your body is already beginning to respond to the repair work." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," Dr. Morrison said with a smile, "that I'd like you to try something for me. Very gently, see if you can move your right foot." Sarah stared at her feet beneath the hospital blanket, concentrating with every fiber of her being. For 2 years, she'd lost all sensation below her waist, but now, miraculously, she could feel the blanket against her skin. Slowly, incredibly, her right foot moved. Emma gasped with delight. "Mommy, you did it!" Sarah began crying as she wiggled her toes, then her left foot, feeling sensation returning like warm sunlight after a long, cold winter. "I can feel everything. I can actually feel my legs again." Marcus leaned forward, his own emotions overwhelming him. "Sarah, there's something else I need to tell you both." "What is it?" Sarah asked, still marveling at the miracle of movement returning to her body. "The FBI recovered all the money the criminals attempted to steal, plus they seized the criminals' own accounts as evidence. There's a substantial reward for information leading to their arrest." Marcus paused, looking at Emma with profound gratitude. "That reward belongs to Emma, of course." Emma looked up from watching her mother's feet move. "How much money?" $5 million. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of Sarah's monitors. "Emma," Sarah whispered, "you're a millionaire." But Emma shook her head. "No, Mommy, we're millionaires, all 3 of us together." Marcus felt his heart swell. "Emma, about what you asked me earlier. You mean about being my daddy? I spoke with my lawyers this afternoon. If your mother agrees, I'd like to adopt you officially, but more than that." Marcus turned to Sarah, his voice trembling with emotion. "Sarah, I know this might seem sudden, but these past 2 days have shown me what family really means. I've spent 6 years building a company, but I've never built a life." Sarah's eyes widened as Marcus continued. "I'm falling in love with both of you. With Emma's brilliant mind and brave heart, and with your strength and grace, and the way you've raised such an extraordinary daughter." He took a shaky breath. "Sarah Chen, would you consider marrying me? Not because of money or gratitude, but because I can't imagine my future without you and Emma in it." Emma clapped her hands together. "Say yes, Mommy. He's perfect for us." Sarah looked at this man who'd shown them such kindness, who'd kept every promise he'd made, who'd fallen in love with her daughter's mind before he'd even noticed Sarah herself. Then she looked at Emma, whose face glowed with hope and happiness. "Marcus Sterling," she said with a voice full of joy, "I would be honored to marry you." Emma jumped up and hugged them both. "This is the best day ever. Mommy can walk again, the bad guys are in jail, we're rich, and now we're going to be a real family." Dr. Morrison watched the reunion with professional satisfaction and personal joy. "I think this is the most successful surgery outcome I've ever achieved. And I'm not just talking about the spinal reconstruction. 3 months later, Sarah walked down the aisle without assistance, radiant in a simple white dress. Emma served as maid of honor, having insisted on giving the bride away herself. Marcus waited at the altar, no longer the lonely billionaire who'd almost lost everything, but a man who'd found something worth far more than money. As they exchanged vows, Emma whispered to herself, "Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to let it lead you exactly where you need to be." The little girl who'd saved a $5 billion company had done something far more important. She'd saved 3 hearts and built them into an unbreakable family. And they all lived happily, brilliantly, and boldly ever after.